filmfestivalcircuit.com and the director of the Portland Comedy Film Festival. And we are excited to have the Best Screenplay Award winner from Portland Comedy Film Festival Spring 2022, Dedra Stevenson. How are you today?
I am extremely well. Thank you, Michael.
Well, good to see you, and congrats, first of all.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled. I'm incredibly honored as well.
We had some family at the event, so give us an idea of, I know you couldn't make it, you had some family there, but where are you, and who came?
Well, I'm in the United Arab Emirates, actually. I live in the Middle East. I'm American, but I've lived here for more than 30 years. In UAE. People there in the US may have heard of Dubai. Dubai is very popular, I think, in America now as a major city of the world, like London or Paris. And my nephew is the one that went for me. Peter went there, and he sorry, I'm a bit nervous. I can't believe I'm so nervous talking to you. I
You're
feel
doing
like I'm
great.
having celebrity shock right now.
You're doing great.
Yeah. So, yeah, Peter Vandenberg. Sorry, I forgot my own nephew's name there for a second. But he was so sweet to actually go and accept those awards for me because he happens to live in Portland. So that was just fantastic luck for me.
You know, that's a great story. I'm glad someone was able to show up, and it just goes to show you we read everything from front to back, and we happened to pick one out from the UAE. So congrats to you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you guys liked it that much. I worked really hard on that screenplay, and it was so from the heart.
Well, why don't you give us an idea of what it's about, what's the genre, what's the title? And I'm really bad at giving away people's stories, so why don't you just say in your own words how much you can tell us about your screenplay?
Okay. Well, absolutely. The name of the screenplay is Kill the Writer, and it is a dark comedy. And it's a short screenplay, almost 30 minutes. I would absolutely, dearly love to see it made, one day. So if anybody's hearing this out there in the netherworld somewhere and you want to get in contact with me, please do not hesitate, because I'd love to see it actually come to life. Now, what inspired the screenplay was my frustration with dealing with the film industry. Actually, truthfully, if the truth be told, honestly, I was very frustrated because, and it's not just the film industry, but even, the gaming industry, all kinds of other, in other ways, people really, I don't feel they value the writer as much as they should. And the writer, I mean, if you really think about it, everything that you enjoy today, every great movie that you watch, every video game that you play, every TV show that you see on Netflix or, any of these streaming services probably started with a book somewhere, and I'm first and foremost an author. So I guess my first blood is that of an author. And I have a film that I've made. So I have put my foot into the filmmaking world, and I was the producer on that project. So I can relate and I can understand, what kinds of stress, goes into producing, something cinematically. But what I don't get is how the writer is often discarded and sort of pushed away out of the way immediately, and sort of, not really recognized even in terms of credit or anything after, which is really not fair. And I was just joking around with a friend of mine, actually, just, really venting my frustrations. And I said, it's as if they have a checklist. Number one, kill the writer, and she's like, wow, what a great idea for a movie that would be. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, that actually would be a good movie. That'd be funny as hell.
Dark
So,
but funny.
and inspiration was born, baby. I mean, I started writing that sucker right away, and it just poured out of me, and it really did. So it was straight from the heart.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a great backstory. And so it'd be great to see this thing get made. It's a fun read, fun characters. It's very easy to visualize, and I guess that's one of the big differences sometimes in being an author and being a screenwriter. With one, you're kind of describing it to a reader, and with a screenwriter, you're kind of describing how this thing would lay out on a screen, which can be very
Absolutely. Well, as a for the filmmakers who might be listening, I can give you some idea. I mean, I sort of saw it in my head, and from a filmmaker's perspective, I suppose that you could do it in two ways. It could be live action, and it could be almost be animation, for the points where, this is the story of a writer who's trying to break into screenwriting and trying to get her work actually made into films. So it's very personal for me, but she's often feeling like she's so unappreciated that once in a while she sort of falls asleep, or she you know um her thoughts trail off, and having the great imagination that she has, she sort of imagines scenarios where, they're actually trying to kill her, you know, in very creative ways. So, in funny ways. Don't worry. It is a comedy, I promise. It's not a horror. Even though it might seem like that at times. But I can tell you that dark comedy and sarcastic comedy like that, I think, really work for the world right now. I think even more than other types of comedy. Don't you agree?
I do, and dark comedy. Now, dark comedy is its own thing, right? And so I
Yes.
have some judges that when they read screenplays, sometimes the people who love the rom coms and just the regular comedies and the Seinfeld type of comedies, when they pick up something that gets a little bit darker, they're like, "Why did you give me dark comedy?" Right? So that's why we had to separate. We had to
Exactly.
separate, because
Like, yeah, exactly. Because it can get a little scary, I suppose. I mean, if you see somebody, even in a hilarious way, get their brains blown out or something. I mean, but I mean, it's hard to imagine that in a comedic setting, but I promise you, it works for this film. It really does. I actually made it work. Yeah.
there you go.
And as we talked about one time before, you and I, comedy is all about timing, right? So it's all about building up the scene, building up, and then sort of, really hitting them with that funny bit, to get that serious laugh going. So everybody who's read the script has come back and told me, "Oh my God, I had to pick myself off the floor from laughing so hard. It was so funny."
Well, I got to ask you, where do you envision this being filmed? Like, where did you have a background in mind?
You know what? When I was writing it, it was just a pure form of artistic expression, and that's really all I was thinking about. And sometimes I think that's where the best work ever comes from. My very first book was like that. My very first novel, The Revenge of the Blue Jenny. I wrote a fantasy fiction trilogy as my first project, and it started out as just from the heart, like a hobby, artistic expression. It was really not meant for anybody but me in the beginning. And even the screenplay started out like that. It was really only meant for me in the beginning until it started taking shape. And I thought, this is actually really good. I should do something with it. So now I'm wondering, if it wouldn't make the beginning of a good series, perhaps a streaming series. I could envision it being a pilot for something of a similar theme, perhaps.
Well, you
Is
never
something to
know.
talk about? You never
Well,
know,
yeah,
right?
you got to find, I always tell people, I give them this advice. If you're a screenwriter and, you don't have the means necessarily to shoot your own film, if you do run into somebody who has the means to shoot their own film, there's three things you
Hmm.
need to be prepared with before you talk to them. Number one, you have to be able to describe what your film is about, a synopsis, basically, like you just did. Give them an idea of what it is that it's about. And if you take 4 minutes to do that, you've lost them, right? If it takes you 4 or 5 minutes you should be able to tell
True.
somebody what a film is about, in a minute. Number two, you have to know where it places in the market. So there's a very, very different market from Pulp Fiction and a very, very different market from, let's say, a a CNN documentary, right? They're two totally
Right.
different ways to market it. They're two totally different products, and they're unrelated, and you probably couldn't market one in the other space. So the worst answer you can have is, oh, there's nothing else like this at all out there in the market. Well, for someone who wants to invest in a product, if they don't know how to market it, they're not buying that product because they got to make money,
Oh
right?
no, right.
So
Yeah, cool. I can appreciate that.
definitely have to describe where it goes in the market. And then the third thing is, and this can get detailed or it can be an overview, but you got to have an idea of how much something costs. So there's two ways to get there. Number one is the super analytical way, where you use a line producer to just break down everything in the script and mark down how many hours it would take, how many locations it is, and your props and
Hmm.
all that, and give you a number and say, okay, this is going to cost you $70,000, right? Or you can, as a screenwriter, you can basically know what in your script costs money, and people can do the calculations on their own. So, like, this is a dialogue driven script with two main actors, 6 actors total, and definitely there are scenes in a car, scenes in an apartment, scenes at a park, and we do have one scene where someone gets shot and we have to show blood come out of them. Well, at least somebody can kind of like think, and I'm not describing yours exactly, but at least you got to kind of think about, like, that's what's in my script. Because if you say I've got to create, a flashback to 7 million years ago and there are dinosaurs trying to eat the main characters, then that is a totally different script number than two people talking on the bench in a romantic comedy,
Of
right?
course, that would be
So,
expensive. Yeah, so yes, I hear
so that's
you.
my that's my little piece, because that's probably the number
No,
one
that's
question.
sound advice. Honestly, that's incredibly sound advice, and I appreciate it very, very much. And I hope I was getting at some of those things in that description. I do think it would work for somebody, an audience that does like. I think you hit the nail on the head with Pulp Fiction. Somebody who likes that kind of genre. I think that would be the right kind of audience for Kill the Writer. I mean, somebody who likes really sarcastic, sort of almost morbid humor in a way,
Yeah, good,
right?
good.
I mean, there's no other film that's a better example actually than Pulp Fiction. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson coming in screaming Bible verses at people while he blows them away. I mean, that's exactly down the same road as Kill the Writer.
Sure, sure. It's definitely
Yeah.
odd. It's definitely got that vibe. And knowing that, and there might be somebody out there who's like, "Oh, I want to do the next Pulp Fiction," or I don't know if you watch Boondock Saints. That's another one that came out around
Oh, I
that
must
time.
have missed that one.
You
I've
got to
got to catch
rewind.
that.
You got to
That's
rewind
my
and watch
taste
the
then.
Yeah, yeah. You got to watch the. Trust me. After you watch it, you're going to email me and be like, "Michael, I didn't know about that, but I do now."
I
Um,
know. That sounds awesome, actually. And I think it's just, this script really, it's for people who are really tired of just, it seems like there's so much of the same coming out in movies right now, and I definitely am not the only one that feels that way, that there's a lot of repetitiveness, in films, the same formula over and over just because it makes money, but it doesn't really say anything, you know? It's
well,
just a popcorn movie that just puts cash in their pocket, and it's not really, there's no artistic value for I think this movie kind of gives them the big finger in a way. I
sure.
mean, really, because honestly, I mean, I think that might be why a lot of writers, I mean, especially if the people reading it were actually writers themselves, they probably felt like, yeah, yeah, right.
No,
Thank
when I
you.
come, it's the same thing I see with musicians. Is it's the number one reason when I ask people, like, why did you get into screenwriting, or why did you get into acting, or why did you get into music, why'd you start rapping, or why'd you start singing? A lot of people, their frustration is, like, a singer says, well, I was just tired of the songs on the radio, they all sound the same, or they're all from the same,
Yeah.
all of the 16 songs that they play every hour on the hour, 24 hours a day. I
Oh,
just got tired of them.
totally.
So I made something new. And it's the same thing with screenwriters. They tell me, you know what? I just wanted to make something that was just a little bit different. I mean, obviously not so different that it turns people off. I mean, you can turn on Netflix and you can surf through some things and you'll be like, why did somebody make this?
I know. I
Uh,
don't understand why some things got made in the first place. They're just awful, just bloody awful.
I'll tell you what happens. This is my short. This is the most overview description because I had a chance to work, you know, for the big Hollywood studios, and let me tell you this: they are the least creative people
It
you have ever seen.
shows.
And
It shows.
the money people, this is how they do it. So the money people are like, okay, we're going to greenlight 30 projects, and these three should do great, right?
Mhm.
And they'll look at it and they'll be like, oh, wow, we're having a great year. We had 6 of them do great, and wow, we didn't expect these other 3 to do well. I wonder why they did well. And they look at it and be like, well, those films are a little different. They had a little less budget. So let's just give those 3 directors more budget and let's just make whatever they've got, right? And
Oh, wow.
they throw money at people just based on their past. I mean, look at the Wachowski brothers since the Matrix. They can't stop making product, right? They made how many Matrix movies? They made, you know,
Yeah, that one's
series. They
gotten
made,
milked a little much, I think, now.
and they have a whole bunch of other movies. That Speed Racer thing was a turd. You know, that didn't go anywhere, and they had a
That
whole
went
bunch of
down?
failures.
Oh,
Yeah,
God. Yeah, that was
but
awful.
they keep getting recycled, right? They keep getting
True.
recycled just based on, you know, a movie. How old's the Matrix now? 24 years ago. They just keep getting recycled, and they just keep getting greenlit, and they just keep getting money, and they just keep getting money. And a lot
In
of
a
times
way, it's
Hollywood,
just so horrible for the film, too, because it's like, it sort of, I think, devalues the original work in a lot of ways because it was such a classic, and now it sort of defaces it somehow. What do you think when that
well,
happens?
sometimes you got to know when to stop. You know, I
Yeah,
remember hearing about
exactly.
the original British Office was like 1 season, but the American one was like what 14 or something. And
Yeah,
one of the reasons the British one stopped is they said, "Look, man, we didn't want to destroy what we had. We made something new. We did it,
exactly.
and we stopped it, and it was
I
done."
love that.
But sometimes people
Breaking
can't put up.
Bad was like that, right? Breaking Bad, it was perfect. That's why I think Breaking Bad as a series was kind of a masterpiece, because it was 6 seasons, it was perfectly timed, and it stopped at the perfect point. I mean, it did not just drag it out, just to keep it on longer. I mean, I think that sometimes, yeah, like you said, you've got to know when it's time to stop and maybe even stop when the show is strong, like stop on a strong note so that people will remember it forever. And I think until now, people are really all about like how cool Breaking Bad was.
Yeah, it's all about the money. That's why you got the spin-offs. That's why you got Walking Dead spin-offs. That's why you got, they. That's why Star Wars, is making a million
Oh,
shows. And, it is
too
what it
much.
is. And sometimes you get good stuff. But I hear you. We could talk about this stuff all day, but let's focus on what we're doing. Let's get our break, and then people can be tired of us when we're coming out of stuff. So,
Absolutely.
it sounds like you have a lot of great ideas. It sounds like you're a resource for a lot of good films
Well,
and a
thank
variety.
you. Thank you. I am like I said, I'm an author, first and foremost. I do have a number of books out on the market. In fact, I mean, you can just Google my name in Amazon and you'll see all of my works currently there, and I do sort of jump around genres quite a bit because I don't stick to one genre because I get bored. This is the thing. I mean, if I stick to one thing too long, I like I said, things inspire me from life, and sometimes something in particular might have really triggered an idea in me, like what happened with Kill the Writer,
Mhm.
and I just feel very compelled to write a story based on that idea. And right now, my current, I'm working on a novel called The Buchanan Bastard, and it's a spy thriller set in the 1970s, New Orleans, Louisiana. Surrounding an oil baron and his family and their connections to Russian mafia
Oh wow.
there. So that shall be very, yeah. I won't tell you more than that, but I'll tell you what, it's going to be freaking exciting, and full of a lot of emotional ups and downs. It's got it all. It's got love triangles. It's got, it's got zombies. Not really. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, but there's a reference to zombies in there. You know, I mean, because New Orleans is full of legendary legends about voodoo and black magic and stuff like that. So you
Oh yeah.
can't write a story based in New Orleans, with anything having to do with Mardi Gras, and not mention things like zombies and the weird magic stuff, right? So
All right.
I'm planning on writing a screenplay based on that as well. That's going to be my next screenplay project. So I mean, since the Buchanan Bastard, I think is my very best work until now. I'm looking forward to releasing that book because all of my beta readers are just like, oh my God, it's amazing. It's just so action
Good.
packed. It had me just glued to the pages. And one guy, he actually said he writes science fiction for a living. I mean, published like hundreds of books of his own. And he said I wanted to read faster and faster and faster because it was just so enthralling. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting a screenplay done on that too, because I'm hoping, wouldn't it be just the most amazing thing to get that picked up as an option at the same time, around the same time as a book release? I can dream, can't I?
You can. You can.
Yes.
Well, I
And
tell you what, we're behind you all the way, and I see nothing but a bright future for you. So,
thank
you know,
you.
keep doing what you're doing, and we're looking forward to seeing more of your work and see what else you got. We just announced the Atlanta After Dark Film Festival.
Oh,
So
wow.
a very we'll be doing a whole series of interviews for that for our filmmakers and screenwriters as well. That event will be in December. So look out for that. There's going to be a lot of, there's so many television and movie connections and so many studios and so many things functioning in
Oh,
Atlanta
and
right
that's in
now.
December.
Be in
I
December.
should try to get it done by then so I can
All right.
enter.
Sounds good.
Great news.
All right. Well, good luck on everything. It's been great to talk to you today.
Thank you, Michael. You as well. Thank you so much. And
Great.
I'm more than honored to have been a part of this film festival. I think what you're doing is so awesome, actually.
Oh, thank you for the kind words. We appreciate it. So
Wonderful.
have a good one.
Thank you.